I did not come back with the impression that the Israeli street is tense. And what I can convey to you is, yes, the officials, people in government, people in military definitely are on edge. They understand how serious the situation is. The public support on one issue only. He has absolute support of those Israelis who disagree with him. If people like him, they like his performance and the way he confronted Iran over the past few years when he's been prime minister in previous terms. By no means the Israelis can underestimate Iran. They cannot, and they do not. You do not see, when you speak to Israelis, anyone belittling the Iranian strength, the Iranian military, and the Iranian threat. So overall, in conclusion, over the past 6 months, Israel has quietly killed many of the well-trained Iranian assets. The big war looks very close.
Hello, good evening. This is Hassan Zafar from Federal Post, and joining me today is Mr. Ahmed Quraishi. He is a security expert, defense analyst, works on PTV, appears on different channels, and right now he is rightly positioned for what we want to talk about right now, the Israel-Iran tension and the situation. Mr. Quraishi is in Israel, Tel Aviv right now. Ahmed Quraishi Saab, welcome to Federal Post.
It's a great honor, Dr. Zafar, to be with you, and always an honor, actually, to speak to you.
Right now, the situation is quite precarious. Very tight rope on which both parties, or should I say the entire region, is walking at the moment. In Tel Aviv, you have a coalition of 7 parties led by Mr. Netanyahu. And you have a war cabinet of 5 members there, which includes members of those coalition. How is Israel looking at the situation that is developing at the moment from Israeli point of view? Because let me just add one more thing. What Iran did, they fired a barrage of missiles and drones on Israel, most of which were destroyed in the air before they could reach the Israeli airspace. The supersonic ones, though, landed there. And if Israel does not, and they did respond last night, does not seem to be a kind of a response from the Israeli point of view that would be called something significant. So how is everything being looked at from their point of view, where you are situated right
now? During Tel Aviv, the city itself, and some of the surrounding areas, and I especially went to the beach, because the beach at Tel Aviv is world renowned. It's one of the, obviously, Mediterranean beaches, all of them, whether they're in Israel or in Gaza, or in Turkey, or in Greece, they're world renowned. So I went to the Tel Aviv beach, and honestly, I came into the hotel just about 3 hours back, and I did not come back with the impression that the Israeli street is tense. So even after the news broke that Israel attacked a facility inside Iran near Isfahan, I thought there would be all of a sudden a panic in the streets in the Israeli cities, but I didn't see that, honestly. And in fact, Israelis were joking. The people I spoke to were joking, making fun. What did Israel do? We just, did a small attack. Nothing really happened to Iran. And so overall, just to answer your question, you don't see a tense country for the time being. The people are having fun. It's the weekend, and people are having fun. The parties have begun. The clubs, the bars are beginning to fill up. The restaurants on the streets. And this is Tel Aviv is basically like Karachi in Pakistan is the business hub of Israel. So you can actually sense what the Israelis are feeling and thinking if you spend some time here in Tel Aviv. And what I can convey to you is, yes, the officials, people in government, people in military definitely are on edge. They understand how serious the situation is, but on the street, it's very casual for the time being.
That's really surprising because do they not care about what happened? Iran fired a massive number of arsenals at Israel, unprecedented. Is this Mr. Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu? He is growing unpopular, or what is the reason? As you said, they are joking about Israel's response last night, what they did in Isfahan.
Exactly. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is generally extremely criticized. I won't say hated, because in politics, obviously, you don't hate somebody. You either agree with their agenda or not. And a lot of people here criticize him because October 7 and the war Hamas launched happened on his watch. So he's severely criticized and unpopular. That's what I hear from everybody. He's unpopular, but he has the public support on one issue only. He has absolute support of those Israelis who disagree with him. And that issue is, there are two issues: response to Hamas, and second, response to Iran. So on these two issues, the Israeli public overwhelmingly supports Mr. Netanyahu. Where they don't like him is when it comes to domestic politics. And obviously, I'm sure you've read more than I did. If there are any elections right now, he might lose. But public support he has to dismantle Hamas and to counter Iran. If people like him, they like his performance and the way he confronted Iran over the past few years when he's been prime minister in previous terms, and public like the fact that Mr. Netanyahu is resisting international pressure, resisting American pressure, and is pushing ahead with the agenda of dismantling Hamas.
The Americans point blank told Netanyahu, or if you allow me to say the Israelis, that they will not be part of any offensive against Iran. Nevertheless, if Iran attacks Israel, they will defend the ironclad defense, which President Joe Biden promised the Israelis. How are Israelis feeling about this American promise and this American role? Because they have refused to be part of any offensive.
Dr. Zafar, you just came to the crux of this story, and I think the most interesting part of this whole story. You can actually see on the Israeli street a certain good feeling about about the self, about Israelis feeling good about themselves. You feel a certain swagger on the Israeli street. Never in 7 decades has Israel received simultaneously Western and Arab Muslim support in confronting and repulsing the attack that happened last weekend the way it did this time. So history has been made because for a few hours last weekend, the faces and air defense systems and radars of several countries in this region, especially Arab countries, became one with the American Central Command and with the Israeli airspace monitoring and air defense system. And all of them jointly, in real time, countered the missiles and the drones that came from Iran. And Israel probably could not have countered those missiles and drones even before they entered the Israeli airspace, most of them, had Israel not had this amazing, impressive, unprecedented, you call it what you want, you can use whatever superlative you want, but the fact is something very unusual, very unprecedented happened over the weekend. So you can feel a certain swagger in the way Israelis talk about how they performed this time. So there's a lot of self-confidence. There's a lot of self-satisfaction with the way things went. But at the same time, the Israelis, Dr. Zafar, are, it's just a small nation, has been in multiple wars. So you do see among the Israelis also a certain realism. They understand that they could not have pulled this off vis-a-vis Iran. And Iran is not a small military, Iran is not a small country, Iran is not a small threat. By no means the Israelis can underestimate Iran. They cannot, and they do not. You do not see, when you speak to Israelis, anyone belittling the Iranian strength, the Iranian military, and the Iranian threat. So, but at the same time, the Israelis are very, very contented, very proud with the way their own military, their own technology and air defense system, and their diplomacy with the Arab countries worked and gave them this momentary, temporary victory, or whatever you want to call it. But there's a huge sense of satisfaction here.
Right, satisfaction over the diplomatic successes, because they were able to woo the Arab nations into their fold or on their side. Looks good. But from the military point of view, let's take a look at what happened. Iranian forces, they were in coordination with the Americans through Ankara and through Switzerland and through other countries. They informed the Americans, gave them the details of the arsenals they were going to fire, and the drones were terribly slow. They took 9 hours to fly from the point of departure to where they intended to land in Israel. So they were absolutely very slow-moving objects. Good for the Israelis that Muslim nations like Jordanians, they were on their side. They shot down some of those slow-moving objects. Well done. But some of them did enter the Israeli airspace. They were symbolic, if not very destructive, that they could penetrate through the Iron Dome. So if that kind of realism prevails, can they not see what has happened?
Yes. Well, you have to. I mean, that's absolutely. It's a very correct observation by you. And obviously, it's a huge achievement. Also, even if the drones were slow and the missiles were slow, it's a huge achievement for the Iranian government, for the Iranian Pasdaran, which is the Sipahi Pasdaran, the IRGC. It's a huge achievement for them to have attacked Israel from Iranian territory. I mean, this is not a small achievement. So even if the missiles were slow, and there is an achievement that Iran has made history for the first time attacking Israel from the Iranian territory, not using proxies, not using some other country or other nation's land. So it's a huge achievement for the Iranians as well. Now when you talk about some of the rockets and missiles getting inside Israel, escaping the Iron Dome, the Israeli air defense system, you have to keep in mind, Dr. Zafar, also that 99% or 98% of those that entered Israel and escaped whatever attempts Israel made to destroy them before they entered the Israeli airspace, when they entered, 99 or 98 or 97% were actually destroyed also inside Israeli airspace.
Yes.
And none of them actually made it to any significant target except one, which is in southern Israel, and it is a Israeli military base. And I think one of the drones, or 2 or 3 or 5 drones, did hit that base. But they did. The base is big, is sprawling. The hit actually happened on a couple of, I don't know, barracks or a couple of buildings which were not significant, and the drones were not big in size, and so the damage was not big. The only casualty that happened in Israel, there's one casualty, which is a severe casualty, did not lead to death, but the young girl, I think between the age of 9 or 12, it's not very clear, but it's under 12 years old. It's an Arab Bedouin, a Muslim girl, Israeli. She's an Israeli citizen from southern.
Israeli but a Muslim.
Yeah. So she's a Muslim, of course, Bedouin, Palestinian. She's Palestinian Muslim. There are 2 million Arab Israelis in Israel.
Yes.
Out of 9 million Israelis, we have here 2 million Muslim Arab Israelis,
Israeli
and part
citizen.
of them, yes, and part of them, just like in Pakistan, we have a tribal area. There's a tribal region. There's Fatah, Waziristan. Similarly, the Israel has a tribal region in the south, and it's all clans and tribals and Bedouin tribes. Mostly are Bedouins who came from Saudi Arabia and from Jordan maybe 100 years ago or 200 years ago, and so these are Bedouin tribes. So the girl is a Bedouin girl, a Bedouin girl from the desert region, from one of the Arab tribes, but they are Israelis. They're Israeli citizens and they're Muslim. So she got severely injured when the Israeli air defense system intercepted one of the drones or missiles, I'm not sure, and the broken parts of that missile or the drone fell over a large area, and I think that girl was hurt in that incident, and I think her injuries are severe, and she's being treated right now at an Israeli hospital.
This is
So
interesting
so
information. This is
yeah.
sorry, this is a very interesting information for me because I would like to understand how are these Bedouins living in the desert? Most of them, as you say, are Muslims. How are they looked at by the other Israelis? Are they looked at loyal to the state of Israel and equal citizens, or is there some kind of distance between that population and this population?
No, the Arab Bedouin Muslim Israeli citizens are in the top echelons of the Israeli state and power. They are the top commanders in the army. You have generals. In fact, currently the military advisor to the Israeli president is an Arab Muslim Bedouin IDF general in the Israeli army is and many Arab Bedouin Muslim Israelis are fighting inside Gaza against Hamas. They are fighting against Hamas inside Gaza. In fact, out of the 130 Israeli hostages who are right now in Gaza in the tunnels with Hamas, 5 of them are Arab Muslim Bedouin Israelis. In fact, there were women. There were women, Arab Bedouin women, who were kidnapped also by Hamas on October 7. But they were released, if you recall, when there was an exchange of prisoners a couple of months ago, 3 months ago. So the women were released. But even as we speak right now, out of 130, not all are Jewish hostages. 5 of the hostages are Arab Muslim Bedouin hostages, Israeli. They're Israeli citizens. And they're top commanders. So yesterday I went and I had dinner with a serving colonel in the Israeli army. We went to their house and we met the children, their family, the extended family, and they have several members of their family who are actually fighting inside Gaza with the Israeli army against Hamas. And they're Arab, they're Muslim, they're Palestinian.
You were invited over by an Israeli serving military officer.
Yes.
I think it's a very curious question. You might be expecting this too. How are they receiving you as a Muslim Pakistani, which they, of course, we don't have diplomatic relations, and I understand you must be traveling on another passport, definitely not Pakistani. How are they treating you, knowing that you, of course, you are a Pakistani national?
Yes, you don't need a passport, Dr. Zafar, to travel to Israel, even if you're a U.S. citizen, because Israel has this policy over the past 5 or 6 decades not to stamp or use any passports. So they do not, whether you have a British passport, Chinese, Indian, American, Australian, whatever, they don't need your passport. They only give you and issue you a travel document if you want to enter Israel. And that travel document is a stamped entry and exit. That's all. So your passport, regardless of which country you come from, is never,
That's
has
very
no,
interesting information. Very
yes,
interesting.
and the reason for that, yes, the reason for that is that 5 or 6 decades ago, many businessmen, many foreign officials and diplomats often used to come to the Middle East to visit several countries at once, and it was often difficult for them to enter Arab countries if they had visited Israel first because of the stamp on the passport. So, and also, and likewise, if some foreign dignitary or businessman would enter Libya or Iraq or Syria and then travel to Israel, the Israeli passport, airport authorities would interrogate them. Why were you in Iraq? What were you doing? And why are you coming here? So to overcome this problem, where the Israelis came up with this new idea where they will not stamp any passport. So for me, I only hold a Pakistani passport. I do not have any other foreign passport, but I did not need to use my Pakistani passport to travel to Israel because I got my visa and my entry and exit and my entire travel done on that separate piece of paper, which is official travel document issued by the government of Israel to anyone who's visiting Israel.
So you are welcome there. You are welcome there.
Yeah, exactly. Now coming to Pakistanis, when I visited Israel for the first time 2 years ago, and I was then part of a delegation of a few Pakistanis, but mostly Pakistani Americans. And you will be surprised, Dr. Zafar, to know or to hear from me that I, as a Pakistani, got a red carpet welcome more than the Pakistani Americans. In fact, one of the Pakistani Americans, who's a very good friend, personal friend, and a financier of the election campaigns of President Biden, actually complained to our Israeli hosts that I'm an American Pakistani and you're not giving me the same warm welcome that you're giving to the Pakistanis who are with us. So my impression was that as a Pakistani, I was given a 5-star red carpet welcome. Pakistan is seen as a very, very important country because there are only 2 nations in the Middle East that are nuclear armed, and that those 2 nations are Israel and Pakistan. And there are only 2 nations in the Middle East which have the latest technology in terms of ballistic and supersonic missiles. And those 2 nations are Israel and Pakistan. And there are only 2 nations in the Middle East that have state-of-the-art international level militaries, and those 2 nations are Israel and Pakistan. So Pakistan is considered and is seen with deep respect. And I frankly asked some of my Israeli hosts at that time, don't you see, I mean, how come I entered Israel from the airport and nobody actually questioned me or asked me anything? It did not take me more than 2 minutes at the immigration counter to see my travel document, and they asked me only one question, which is, "Sir, are you from Pakistan?" And I said, "Yes, I am from Pakistan." "Are you coming from Pakistan straight?" And I said, "Yes." And the third question was, "We do not see many Pakistanis visiting Israel, so you are most welcome in Israel." And that's all. And I got my travel document and I entered Israel. And when I asked my Israeli officials, why is that? Because Pakistan doesn't have diplomatic relations with Israel. So how come you allow Pakistanis to enter your country? And the answer was very simple. In addition to what I already told you, the answer was simple. The answer was, we do not see Pakistan as an enemy country like we see, for example, Syria or Libya under Gaddafi, or Iraq under Saddam Hussein, and Iran under the clerics, the clergy. So these countries are enemy countries for us, but Pakistan is we put Pakistan in the same list as Turkey, as Azerbaijan, as Egypt, Jordan, as Gulf countries. So Pakistan is not seen as a
very interesting information. And thank you so much for sharing this with me. I will not take too much of your time now. The question here is back to the geopolitical situation. If Israel does not respond in a befitting manner, as they deem befitting, uh, to what Iran did, and as you said in the beginning of our talk, that they are joking, the Israelis are joking about last night's half-hearted response, if you like to put it that way. What happens to Israel's deterrence in the region? You know, that heavy weight of the region who keeps everybody in place. What happens to that?
That's a very good question, and let me give you an answer.
Just let
in
me
the
add me
following.
one more thing. Just let me add me one more. If they don't respond in a befitting manner, things go really against them. So, are they being sucked into something which they don't want?
Your last point, Dr. Zafar, I think is the crux of the matter. They don't want to be dragged. If you speak to Israeli officials right now, they will tell you, yes, Iran is an issue. Yes, Hezbollah is an issue. But right now, we are very close to dismantling one of the key proxies. By the way, one of the key proxies of Iran, which is Hamas. And by the way, a lot of the people don't see Hamas. Everybody sees Hamas as a representative of the Palestinians, but here in Israel, they don't see Hamas as a representative of Palestinian people. They see Hamas as a Iranian proxy, like Hezbollah, like Houthis, and they feel that they're very, very close now to dismantling one of the most powerful Iranian proxies in case of Hamas. And also, let me tell you one more very interesting thing, Dr. Zafar. If Israel were to pick up or open a full-fledged war with Iran right now, in that case, Israel would have to face some very, very tough, well-trained Iranian officers and Iranian proxy commanders. Both, you know very well that the IRGC has commanders who have tremendous experience in fighting, from Afghanistan to Yemen to Iraq to Syria to Lebanon and elsewhere, and operations in Africa and Argentina and God knows where else. And they're very, very, very well trained. And in addition to that, in addition to the Iranian IRGC officers who are very, very well trained, they also have commanders in Hezbollah, in the Iraqi militias, in the Syrian militias, Houthis, and all of them are very, very well trained. So if Israel goes to war with them, Israel probably would lose, probably, because this is a very, very strong strong set of commanders that the Iranians have. So what is Israel doing right now? Keep in mind, Dr. Zafar, what is Israel doing right now? It's playing a very smart game, a little slow, but a very smart one. They are, after October 7, the Israelis have killed at least between 300 and 600 commanders in Hezbollah in southern Lebanon on the ground. Not the top people, not Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, maybe not his immediate aides, but about somewhere between 300 to 600 local commanders dispersed all over southern Lebanon. That's one. Number two, Israelis after October 7 have killed 3 IRGC generals and 4 top intelligence commanders in the Damascus consulate. These are not the only 7. There are many other IRGC intelligence officers of a mid or lower level who have been eliminated in Syria and also in Iraq over the past 6 months. So overall, in conclusion, over the past 6 months, Israel has quietly killed many of the well-trained Iranian assets. And I think the Israelis What the Israelis are doing now is, by slowly killing all these well-trained people, Israel is waiting for the optimal moment when Iran will be deprived of its best generals, of its best Hezbollah and other commanders, and that's when Israel probably, maybe, will pick up a fight, but not now.
The April 1st attack in Damascus on Israeli embassy was a part
Iranian.
of that plan, Iranian embassy, where they killed two important commanders of the Iranian army. But that has taken everybody by surprise, even the Americans, as if you look at the New York Times report 2 days ago, the detailed investigative report, which clearly tells that the Americans were not informed, and it even goes on to the extent of saying that the Israelis miscalculated massively about how Iran would respond to that. How much of this miscalculation is being felt by the Israelis right now?
Dr. Zafar, if the Israelis feel that they miscalculated, the people I spoke with, I did not feel a sense of regret or remorse from anyone that I spoke with. So if they're regretting that they miscalculated, I don't see it. What I see is here, and you will see, even you, if you contact and you speak to Israeli officials and the spokespeople and the people who deal with the media, and you can do that obviously while sitting in Lahore or in Islamabad. Today is a small world. Obviously, we all use internet, so it's not a big deal. But you can speak to anyone really. I mean, I'm here, but you can speak to them as well while sitting in Lahore, and you can find their phone numbers and you can be directly interviewing them. So if you speak to them, I assume, my guess is you will not see any remorse. Yes, I have seen some Israeli analysts on CNN saying, well, maybe Israel has miscalculated, but you don't see that sense here from Israeli officials. What we see here is something very clear. They are very happy with it, they're satisfied, and they did it deliberately. They knew what they're doing, and they knew that this is a chance that cannot come again. And probably they knew that if they tell the Americans, the Iranians might be alerted somehow. Everybody is connected to everybody else. So
Right.
you don't see that sense of remorse and regret.
Last question, and maybe just a quick answer. How do you see the all-out war coming? Do you think? Because it's not at a time of anyone's choosing. It can just happen out of another miscalculation, if you allow me to say.
We are very close. I have, and you have, I'm sure, we have not seen a situation this tense maybe in the past 30 years. I don't recall ever. Probably the Israelis went or are in the state of mind that they are in. So as a short answer, the big war looks very close, but probably may not happen soon, probably.
Right. Thank you so much, Ahmed Quraishi sir, for joining us. Have a pleasant stay, and see you again.